started today so we can just respect everyone's time. So we'll go ahead and start with introductions. I guess I'll start. I'm Megan. I'm with Altitude Arborist, and I am on the leadership team for the sector partnership. And Connie, if you will introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Connie Krupp. I'm an instructional designer working with Lynn. I wrote the apprenticeship program and excited to be part of this. I think I've met almost every one of you in person, but I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. I'm just going to choose people so we can go quickly. Nikki.
Good morning, everyone. Nikki Lucas with the Place Setting Company. And I am the administrative support or the convener for the Tree Care Sector Partnership. So you get lots of emails from me.
Thanks, Nikki. Lynn.
Lynn Vossler, Front Range Community College. We do the related learning portion of the Arborist Apprenticeship. And I'll take your spot for a minute, Megan, and I just want to introduce our new Associate Vice President of Workforce and Strategic Partnerships, Janelle Highfill. So I'll let Janelle introduce herself.
Well, Lynn, you said it all. Thank you. I'm excited to work with this group. I know I have big shoes to fill with what Lynn's been doing, but I will do my best. And I was laughing at the humidity thing because, yeah, this morning I was like, oh my God, my hair is just like we never have humidity in Colorado.
I know.
So happy to work with all of you.
Great. Welcome, Janelle. Thank you. Josh.
Hi, good morning. Josh Morin with We Love Trees, and also chair the Tree Care Sector Partnership. So I'm on the leadership team with Megan. Yeah, so glad everyone's here.
All right. And Kelly, good to see your face today.
Hi, yes, hello. My name is Kelly Mazer, and I am the executive director for the ISA Rocky Mountain chapter. Happy to be here today.
Thanks, Kelly. And Madeline.
Hi, everyone. Madeline here with the Park People. Sorry, my camera's like really bright for some reason. I was trying to fix it. Nice to see you all again. Yep, I'm with the pre-apprenticeship program, Tree Force, in case anyone didn't know.
Thanks, Madeline. You look very ethereal today, so that's great. Mike, if you'll introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Mike Earl, owner, operator of Old Growth Tree Service up in the Eagle County area. Also a member of the management team, and looking forward to introducing apprenticeship to the Rocky Mountain region and the Western Slope.
Thanks, Mike. Adrian.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Camacho, forestry superintendent in Aurora, City of Aurora, and on the sector partnership leadership team.
Awesome. And Vince.
Hey, greetings, everybody. My name is Vince Aquino. I'm up at CU Boulder. I supervise the facilities operations forestry team on the main campus and East Campus and South Campus. So good to see you all. Great.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks for being here. Good to see you. Okay, I think that's everyone. Did we miss any introductions? Cool. Well, we'll jump right in then to the first part of our agenda about Arborist apprenticeships from Front Range Community College. Lynn, I think you're going to update us on the grant and a few other things.
Yep, I am. And Connie's going to help me out. She's got some things to show on her screen. So first of all, great news. We worked with the Skill Advanced Innovation Grant team, and they funded our grant to redevelop the curriculum and kind of retool our related learning. This grant will fund all the instruction for year one of our newly revised related learning, which is going to be 2 years. Normally, we're looking at that tuition being about $2,500, but because the grant is funding the instruction, we'll be able to have up to 12 participants that first year for only $50 registration fee. And that's this year coming up. So perfect time to get apprentices into the program. It will also fund our TCI subscription fees, and we're going to go through in a minute sort of the schedule of what that looks like and how we will use the TCIA online instruction to help keep down the amount of time and keep down the cost for our apprenticeship. And then it also funds up to $6,000 for the Tree Care Sector Partnership to promote the apprenticeship. And that's pretty open. That will just be an invoice back to us from the partnership. And so there'll probably be more discussions down the line on what that looks like, but some help to get the apprenticeship funded. So Connie, you want to go to the next spot? All right, so this is where we're at. Connie and I have been working with TCIA to look at a new schedule and a new format for our Arborist apprenticeship. And TCIA is developing, Brian was on last month and talked about the fact that they're developing online courses for every single one of the competencies that are required for the apprenticeship program. And so using their online piece, and we're going to take a look at that a little bit. This is what we're looking at. This is a schedule of year one. It includes the number of competencies, and we took that directly from our original program and the original competencies that are laid out by the Department of Labor. Estimate the online class hours. And again, this is asynchronous, so students can get on and do this when it makes sense to them. We're going to ask them to please do this before they take the lab classroom portion at Front Range. And the subscription cost will all be rolled in together into our tuition. So we're estimating, for example, with the Intro to Arborist Safety, that with the 6 to 10, and again, it really is individualized depending on how long it takes these folks. They don't have to do it all in one sitting. They can do it from home. They can do it from work. They need to have a computer. And then how many hours once they come on into the class and on campus that we will go through the hands-on piece of those competencies. So you can see here first year, and again, TCIA is starting to bucket these a little bit differently than we did, because they want to, and what's nice is then participants will get some certificates along the way. So they start with ground operations, safety and ground operations, and as you can see, chipper, chainsaw, rigging, and then aerial lift 1 and 2, and then hazards. That would be the electrical hazards would be the first year. And then if you scroll up a little bit, Connie, this is our schedule.
Oh, you want this, or do you want next year?
No, let's look at this.
Okay.
So this is a proposed schedule for this year. So these courses would be taught Mondays and Tuesdays for year one. And you can see some of the classes like this first one, Intro to Arborist Safety, our lab will just be half day. But then with the ground fundamentals, it'll be a full day. And then some of them are 2 full days to get through all of the competencies after the students complete their online piece. And these are proposed instructors to teach these courses. And again, a proposed schedule. So Connie, if you want to roll up, then here would be year 2. Okay, and it's tree climber 1, 2, and 3. And 4, rigging is 4, tree care specialist and plant care technician, and then EHAP renewal. And again, you can see the online hours and then our schedule. Yep, go ahead, Connie, on down. Yep, there's the schedule with our instructors. And again, this is just preliminary. Connie and I are going to still spend time with each of the instructors to go through, make sure these competencies can be completed in the lab at this amount of time. Any questions with this proposed schedule? And year 2 would be Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then year 2 and 3. So this is for your year 1 and year 2. We had, you know, about 10 students last year. They would complete this year 2. For the year 2 and 3 students from last year, we are still working on a schedule that will work for them. And we might have to do some of our own teaching because the competencies aren't clean across the way that TCIA has done that.
It looks like Adrian has his hand up.
Yep.
So just quick question. Do we have, can the employer use their judgment on which, like, can I just enroll someone for year 2 who's not taking year 1 because they're sort of a seasoned employee? They don't need to go through the basics so much. But is that given? Do we have that discretion?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adrian. Something we haven't considered. We will be registering students in cohorts per year. So they can't pick and choose through the years specifically because there's a registration fee at the beginning of the year. But I think there's no reason we couldn't allow them to take year 2 as long as they're, as long as you believe they've got the competency to be able to get into that year 2. But that's something we can continue to talk about.
Hey, Lynn, can I
Yep.
jump in here and just ask a question related to that? So if a company does that, then are those basically non-apprentice students? Because it seems like they would be, that's existing employees, so they would just be additional students that would participate in those classes. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, Janelle, first of all the students are incumbent workers. So they're all working already.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what Adrian is saying is these would be some workers who, Adrian, have already like have been with you for quite some time and have already completed the first year competencies in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm planning to enroll an employee who's been working with me for 2 years. And so, you know, I can start him at year 1, but I don't think that would be his or your best use of time. So, you know, can I start him in year 2? Because, you know, the way the apprenticeship works is that the sponsor, which is the shop, has to qualify their apprentices. They're the ones that can either deliver it via Front Range Community College or their own in-house shop training. So if I can demonstrate that I've trained this person in so many hours, then I sign off on that. Does my question make sense?
It does.
Yeah, I can chime in here just from my awareness and familiarity. You know, I think you've got it right there, Adrian. You know, that's the flexibility of apprenticeship, and especially a competency based. I'm not sure if you guys have switched over to the competency based model, but when you are enrolling someone into an apprenticeship program, you can and you should credit them for where they are, right? And so that means you know, hey, they've already got, you know, 2,000 hours, say, of working in the field, and in the course of doing that, you know, they've demonstrated all the competencies in all of those year 1 courses. So you're good, right? Like if they can demonstrate those competencies, and you as the sponsor of the program and the person in charge of your shop is able to do that, that's fine. And then to be in compliance with the competency-based model, it just means that they can finish out and become a journey worker arborist by demonstrating all of the competencies that are required to be a journey worker arborist. And as long as they're matching up and following that model of having enough related learning within a year. So I'm not the authority on this, but that's my understanding, is in line with your understanding. And I think the caveat there is hook up with DOL and make sure that you're doing your documenting or recording in the database so you're compliant for that employee.
Yeah, we're on a competency-based model, and that's how it's explained to me, that I sign off on their related learning and hours. So just, but I didn't know from the Front Range point of view whether they really only develop this to start year 1 and year 2 sequence, or can I slot an employee into year 2? Because I think
I think it could work, Adrian, for you to slot them in year 2. The other thing we'd like to come to is that, kind of a letter of agreement that these are the courses that Front Range will be offering, with a limit of, a minimum of 10 registered in the first year and 8 registered in the second year. Because we have to have those minimums in order for us to run the classes. But as long as we meet those minimums and your folks are trained, so that, we did try and bring in someone who was not hired by a company and try and run some see what that looked like, just having some students take classes. And we want to, I know from your point of view that when you bring them in at that point, they will have the background they need to be able to do the next courses. So I think it could work, Adrian. Any other questions? The other thing to know is that the instructors then will be responsible for making sure that students complete the online piece of training. And so the grant will also pay for a training for the instructors that will happen in September. Most of it's online. And I think there's an hour and a half that they meet with Brian, real-time remote, but the rest of the time they're doing online training. So all that will be paid for, and they will be trained to oversee that online piece.
It seems to me, Lynn, that one critical component here, just knowing the orientation of a lot of the people in our industry, and also who are going to be in this program, I would say one of the strengths is not getting people to do things online or sitting down in front of computers. So I think it's really important to get the engagement, buy-in, and then support from the employer. Like, hey, you gotta almost like, if you have a computer in the shop, get them to do this, whenever you can, because I think that may come up as a pain point.
Yeah, agreed, Josh. But the plus is that, as we talked, if you have a snow day or you have a day that you can't get people out in the field, you can take advantage and they can whip through and get some of this online training done on their own time in your own schedule. So I think the other thing is it could work really well for Mike and people on the Western Slope. You can still do the lab work, or you can send them all the way to Front Range if you wanted to, but you could do the lab work on site, or, as we talked, work with a community college over there to do the lab work and still do the online piece when it makes sense for you. So if it's easier on the schedule, for sure, your schedule. So
yeah, Lynn, I think this is an improvement over how it was.
Great. Yeah, that's what we were going for, was less tuition, less hours in the class, but still make absolutely certain we're covering all those competencies that need to be covered. Connie, do you want, I'm going to have Connie go ahead and just give a little bit of a demo, because she's been working in this TCIA portal, and the training that they've put together is really top notch and very interactive. It's not going to be boring and sitting, reading page upon page. So Connie, you want to?
Yes, well, and that's a good segue. This is not a paid commercial, but I teach quite a few online courses and many different learning management systems, and this is amazing. I am really impressed with what they have done. And so they gave me permission as an instructor, and so I have access to these 8 courses, and I'll just go just real quickly so that you can get a little bit of an idea. And then if you have any questions, I'll certainly answer them. I am not the expert in this yet. I'm still finding my way through, but as the course admin, as Lynn said, the teachers will all go, we will all go through the training, and I'm going to go through it too so that I can help the teachers if they have issues. But it's spread over a couple of weeks. It's 10 modules. We all have to do a lesson plan and a capstone. It's about 14 hours of work, but it's really important that as teachers, we know how, and I'll call myself a teacher, even though I won't be teaching a class. I did take a couple of the courses. I took the Arboriculture safety. I actually passed the final exam, but I'm not passing the other ones for some reason. So, but it's really very interactive. And they've added, this is new, this is an electrical hazards awareness program. And then every year, I guess there's a renewal. So we added that in there. Again, you as employers will decide, but we put it in here because Brian from TCIA said it's really important. And as you can see, they didn't break them down like we did initially, or like you did as subject matter experts. They broke them down. I almost call them into genres, because they said so many people were starting the apprenticeship, maybe going to another company or whatever. So they wanted people that were chipper specialists. They wanted people that were that just did chainsawing and rigging and things like that. And so that's why it's broken down the way it is. I'll just go into, so everyone has an overview to it. You go into it first, and then everyone has, this is nice for the students because it explains how to go through the course, how it's structured, what the learning objectives are for everyone. And it tells you where, so with this first course, there are the 7 chapters plus the survey. And then it tells you how to do the quizzes and whatever. And I'll just quickly share a little bit of the video so you can just see what that kind of looks like.
Take evaluations, which could include a quiz, midterm, or final exam using quizzes. This tutorial shows how to take a quiz in Brightspace learning environment. To begin, from the quiz list page, navigate to the quiz you want to take. Read the quiz details. This gives you important information such as the quiz period. Judy.
So that the videos are really very intuitive, very helpful. And so then with like the first, this is tree rigging and removal. So it's part of the grounds operation. So it's well into the ground operations. And then there are 7 chapters and the course survey. And then there will be a final one. And as Lynn said earlier, if I'm into this chapter and I'm working my way through it, I don't have to go back and start over. It saves where you're at. The teacher knows exactly where the student is and what's up with that. So that's always good. Again, so this is a little bit farther into the class, but it would ask different questions. Again, it's a real short video.
Planning a rigging operation. What questions should you ask before planning a rigging operation?
So it's
planning a,
oops, sorry, it's the verbal, but then also questions, and has a lot of different panels, different videos for each area. it's just good stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed. I'm hoping that you're going to like it as much as all of this. And then it always lists, this is what's in this chapter, and then the final assessment. Brian said it takes usually there's about 50 questions, and this one says it's going to take about 2 hours. It certainly took, now, let's say I'm a very beginning arborist. It took me about 3 hours, but I always had to go back and look for the answers. So a lot of the folks are going to know that. You can try and take it 3 times. Like this is a fill in the blank. There's some really cool drag and drop questions that
Yeah, and I think, Connie, the nice thing too is that the instructors will be there for help.
Yes.
And we're going to send an administrator through the course as well, so that we can be there for support if there's any kind of questions along the line.
Yeah.
And they could actually do it together. They could sit in a classroom together and do it, or an office or something.
Right. And then on the there are not everyone. Oh, here's good. I picked one. So there's an instructor guide and a rubrics for all of the lab. It's all finished. It's all done for you. So it's let's see, I have to move my little Zoom screen. Okay, so it tells you, describe how the climber secures the block, and then you click yes or no, and they get points if it's a yes. Now I can't go in here because I don't have it set up, but the teacher will set up the class. And again, probably Lynn's admin will help with that, set up all the classes. Then the teacher will have an access to that. So it will be pretty self-explanatory. And let me go into the course admin. Let's see, this pops up every time. I haven't figured out how to unpop that. It's driving me crazy, but let's see, course admin. So this is where it'll show who's all in the class, how far they've come, how far they've gone. Like I've completed 9 out of the 68 objectives. And I don't have a grade yet, but it just has different people. They put me in as a student and as a teacher, but this is what the teacher will see. And then once the class is completed and they've finished everything, then the teacher will get a notice that they finished. If it's getting close to the lab time and they haven't finished their class, then the teacher will have to give them a quick heads up and say, hey, you haven't finished your final assessment yet. Get that finished, because lab, I call it lab. Some people call it field work, whatever you decide. We'll make sure that it's congruent so that we're saying the same thing. So that's a quick overview. Are there any questions?
Could somebody take the assessment without having gone through like the training? It seemed like you were able to click on that and take the test if you had wanted to.
That's a good question. I think the answer is yes. That's a question that I have for Brian, because I want you as the leadership team to decide. Because most learning management systems can have the drip where you have to finish one to get into the next. And I think maybe because I'm set up as a teacher, I can just go through the whole thing. But I think as a student, they have to go through it all.
I actually had a meeting with Brian last week, and he mentioned that the student will actually have access to the test right away, simply because it's set up for adult learners. Okay. So that way it's like you can pick and choose. And the nice thing in there is you can see if people have reviewed items. So, if someone doesn't do well in a certain area, perhaps an instructor could say, hey, I'd like you, I want to make sure everyone goes through at least this section or whatever, and check that off. But, and that may be a nice way to, if there's something that wants to be set up for pre-test, if we want to put someone in year 2, it's like, okay, well, go through all these tests in year 1 and make sure that you really are, your knowledge is up to par, with what the year 1s are experiencing. So there's not a difference in what people really know. between those who did one and those who
Mhm.
jumped in.
Mhm.
But
Good
that
point.
that's what I learned from my meeting with him. I think I'm fairly sure that's accurate.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. I did not know that, so that's perfect.
And then just another question, in this form, the required minimum annual related learning, is it hours, a minimum number of hours that each apprentice would be expected? Is that what it is?
So we're still in discussions with the Department of Labor folks, right? About as you move to competency-based and you finish the competencies, are you still tied to those 450 hours? We will be at, we're not sure yet. Again, you looked at the beginning run and we're a little under 400. I think we're around 3 something with journey
Right.
worker class. So the Department of Labor is still answering that question for us. If they get to a point where they still require the 450 clock hours, you can get those additional hours many different ways, as they've explained to you. So if you send an apprentice to a conference, if you have internal meetings and internal training, you can get to that final 450 hours with additional programs that you do. Josh, is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Now, my understanding is if you've gone to a competency-based model, I know for my competency-based program, which is early on, the rule is 144 hours for every 2,000 hours or for every year you're enrolled in a program. So it takes you 2 years to complete it, you got to demonstrate 288 hours of related learning time. That's the ratio that the DOL is requiring. So, that's and I know there was a guy at the Colorado office, and that was his objection, was saying like, hey, we need if somebody's starting green, we need a minimum number of years or hours that they're going to complete. And I thought we'd arrived, and Kat may have some awareness about that. She's not on the call, but I thought they were pushing for 2 years. So I don't know if anybody that's current that, Mike, you might be in the process of this, or, if they've stated what that is, but that's my understanding. And then I know that some other arborist companies, I think like Affordable Tree Service, that you're just matching up trainings. Like if you brought in an external trainer and they're covering these different topics, all of that counts as classroom time from a sponsor perspective. So, you can be flexible and creative about how you hit that related learning threshold requirement.
I would just throw in that we will do a journey worker course. That isn't included in this first schedule. Because we'd like to do one that includes those who graduated and are moving into journey worker and anybody who's serving as a journey worker in your organization. So they get a little bit of training about how people learn, how you make sure people are learning as you're mentoring folks. Mm-hmm. So we'll include that as well. So just timing wise, everybody needs to start thinking about getting people registered as soon as we get the class set up. Probably mid-August, we'll get the course set up so that you can start registering. And then September, I think mid-October, we'll have our orientation. And then classes will start in November.
Is there a specific drop dead deadline for registration? I know you said opening in August, but
there will be, Megan.
Okay.
I'll make sure that gets out there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I think is everybody solid with the questions that they had? I want to make sure we hit everything else or as much as we can in our meeting today, but this is an important topic. So I want to make sure we get it, everybody's questions answered.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank Lynn and Connie for making this extra effort.
Yeah.
So thanks so much.
Exciting.
You bet. And I'll put my contact information in the chat. So if any kind of questions at all, please feel free to call or send me an email.
Just to follow up on Josh's comment about what I'm doing with the apprenticeship the sponsored apprenticeship that I'm doing right now. It is based on 144 hours, and I am competency based with my enrollment with the DLL right now.
Very cool. Thank you. Well, thanks for that. I appreciate you all both being on the call today to share with us those items. I think that's going to be really nice, particularly for folks who are, needing that extra support of a program. So thank you. So Josh, do you want to tell us a little bit briefly about your visit to DC?
Yeah, and I guess I didn't do that yet. I serve on the board of directors for the Tree Care Industry Association. We had a board meeting back in June in DC, and part of that also was a lobbying effort based on COVID and some other things, and just this sort of like state of how things are in the Capitol. We couldn't do the normal, visitation of offices, but what we did, and one thing that TCIA has been working on for a long time, almost 20 years, is an independent OSHA standard. And that basically is, a set of guidelines and standards that is specific to arborists and arboriculture. And, I participate on the SBREFA, which is the small business review panel for that. And that's moved along pretty well. And we recognize that I think Hickenlooper serves on a committee that oversees OSHA. And so we, TCI elected to, donate some money to him to get an audience with him, just to push that agenda item, which we did. We sat down with him, had a really nice conversation. He's pretty stoked on trees. He immediately started talking about this tree he has that his wife loves, and it's got pink, things on it. And he texted his wife and determined it was a Hot Wings maple. And he had just been on a call with like CSU talking about the fastest growing trees in the Front Range. So we kind of dropped into a great conversation with him. He's a huge supporter of, the green industry and trees, really, really excited about that. And, I shared with him the work we're doing with the Tree Care Sector Partnership and Arborist Apprenticeship. And, he just, voiced his support for that, and also said that there might be some legislation coming out that's going to offer to support, some of the wage expenses that employers have to, put forward to support apprentices. So that was something also that was that he talked about. So it was just a good meeting, and nice to know that he's in full support. And it really does seem like, that apprenticeship as a model of learning is really, there's a lot of support behind that. I think, just the fact that, we've gotten these grants shows that there's, I think on a federal level, there's a lot of support there for rebuilding these programs, recognizing that other ways of learning besides the traditional, four-year college are going to be really needed for our workforce and our economy. So it's all good stuff. It's fun to do. Nice to make the connection. And hopefully we'll continue to leverage some of that. I have to follow up with our lobbyists and send an email and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I'm muted. I'm just talking to myself here. Thank you, Josh, for sharing that and for your work on that. I learned more about the way you're involved each time you tell that story. So thank you. That's pretty exciting. So just a brief update so we can get to open discussion about workforce needs. I did attend the Grit Job Fair recently, I guess, was it last week? I don't know. I was gone for a week, so maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But essentially this program is put on by Denver, I think it's Denver Workforce. But essentially they have a cohort of individuals who go through a series of training over 8 weeks, and it's very broad. Part of it is with the park people, and they learn how to plant trees. But essentially overall, they learn specific skills, gain specific certifications, and also get to apply some of that by doing some community-based projects. And then at the end of that, they hold a career fair. So this first cohort, there were 4 individuals who completed it. They're generally in their early 20s. And the things they got in terms of certifications and experience were OSHA 10, HAZWOPER 40, so hazardous material spill cleanup, best practices for tree planting. They learned stormwater management, rain garden installer certification is one of the certifications they got. They learned how to do rain barrel installation, energy audits on homes, soil testing for watershed, and they earned their ICAS certification as well. So it's very broad. It's basically set up so they get certifications and learn about different aspects of green infrastructure planning, essentially. And so, you know, there were a couple of people who were interested in arboriculture there, and I was able to speak with them. No full bites, but there were people representing different organizations there as well. So they're going to continue this program and have more cohorts and have a job fair at the end of each one. So hopefully it's a program that takes off and is just yet another way for us to engage with people in the funnel who might be interested in our profession. So I thought it was worthwhile. And something worth keeping up with. So
I could also speak a little more to it if you want, Megan. I made the curriculum and led that week with them. We did like a day of tree ID. We did like a little bit of an introduction to trees and like their benefits in an urban environment. We did like a day where we planted some trees and did some like resident communications, 811, stuff like that. It was all successful. We also had them do the TCIA Intro to Arboriculture Safety Certification. So we plugged that for them a little bit. There's a cohort that we're going to be leading in October sometime, and it'll be a week long. So if anyone is interested in like being part of that or involved more, let me know. If involved either in like the curriculum development or like being there one day to speak on opportunities in tree care, things like that. Totally open to that. So
thank you, Madeline. I think that would be great if you could send that information to Nikki and she can disseminate that to us. With specific dates, I think that would be a great opportunity, the more we can, to get out to these young people. So perfect. If there aren't any questions on that, I would love to move on to give us an opportunity for a few minutes to talk about, if anybody, open discussion, anybody has any challenges with workforce that they'd like to talk about today.
I can share, we received this grant, for some different things with apprenticeship. And I currently have one registered apprentice and I have another trainee. And I'm just sharing this, that I'm running into this, bottleneck where, really I lack another journey worker, or someone that I could match up this other trainee with, to enroll her, so that I'd be able to enroll her in the apprenticeship program as well. So that's kind of I'm running into that bottleneck where it's like, oh, okay, well, to maintain this 1-to-1 training ratio, I need another journey worker. So that's just a reality. I'm working on that. So just going to share that.
I wish I had a magic answer for you, Josh.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I'm not sharing that to like, yeah. I'm not like trying to problem solve it, but I think it's just like an experience share of like the realities that you face as a business. Is you're like, oh, okay, I've got this training model, right? And okay, I've hired I've got a few good people, and it's kind of heavy at the bottom and light at the top, right? And so it's a chicken and egg thing, and and maybe it's like, oh, well, I need to get my current apprentice sort of like matriculated to journey worker status in order to get the next journey worker going. I don't know if that's going to be the answer, or if it's going to be bringing someone in from outside or what, so.
Yeah,
yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, one of the models, my background is in medicine, and one of the models in medicine is I'm a PA, and we work under a physician's license. I mean, we have our own licenses. There's a whole lot of discussion there, but regardless, you have someone with more experience and education, who fewer people who cost more money, right?
Right.
Leading those who may have less experience, and are constantly training. So you mentioned a one-to-one relationship. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Because it seems like it could easily be a 1-to-3 relationship or something along those lines.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a defining characteristic of an apprenticeship model, right?
Okay.
Is to say that it's a one-to-one, right? So when you're doing your on the job learning, you're getting the attention of one person. Now, it doesn't have to be the same person all the time, but if you want to have 2 registered apprentices doing on the job learning, that's a defining characteristic of the apprenticeship model, is that it's 1-to-1. So if you had like 2 people you recognize as having journey workers, and then 2 people as apprentices, you can mix up the crews and swap them around, but when they're getting credit for the on the job learning, that should be under the direct supervision of someone that's identified as a journey worker.
Interesting. That's so, we don't have an apprentice, so these are little things, nuances I didn't know. Gosh, it seems like, now I'm thinking in my brain, wheels turning, like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be, a way to make it where it can almost be time-based, so you can have a journey worker working one-to-one at different times, with multiple people, because that's what, to me, would make the biggest bang in terms of getting more people fully trained up through that program, especially early on, while we're getting more journey workers through the program. So, okay. I bet that would be a heavy lift to change that system.
Yeah.
Anybody up for the task?
Well, I mean, it's Janelle again, at the risk of weighing in, as from a position of some ignorance. I thought that DOL said that is the preferred ratio, but in some instances you can push those ratios if industry, if that's viable from an industry perspective. But
okay.
Josh, maybe you've tried to have that conversation. I mean, if not, that's something we could look into.
Yeah, normally we have Kat on the line, and we'll have to talk with her some more, Kat Plaza, about that, because and Melissa English about that. I know that it's a lot of it, it goes without saying that it's based on the dangerousness of the profession, so that they can probably train. I don't know if you come up with another job that isn't quite as dangerous, they probably are okay with a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1.
Yeah, it seems like the more experience an apprentice gets, maybe the less one-on-one they might need, right? Early on, one-to-one makes a lot of sense. As they go through, being able to expand that. Anyway.
Yeah, and maybe there's discussion about groundwork versus tree work, for example.
So
It-
anyway, my brain's always turning like, how can that be more efficient? Because that's really inefficient, and makes it a barrier to getting more people through. So it's a good topic you brought up, Josh.
Cool, thank you.
Huh. And I learned something new. Other discussion questions? Anything from the whole meeting that anybody has a burning desire to bring up but didn't want to take more time?
Megan, I would like to throw out the possibility, Janelle had mentioned this, I think it's a great idea to have, I know you guys, the plant people or the park people are thinking about having a sort of a, everybody come together and meet arborists, but even expand that and have folks who are interested. And Janelle, you've had some experience with other professions where workforce was able to really bring in quite a bit of people to talk with employers about positions available and possible apprenticeships. So getting kind of everybody in the same room and getting some of those interested folks in might be a good idea before we start the program.
Yeah, because if that is a model that might work here, again, in a totally separate industry, it was for diesel mechanics, but at the college I came from, the model there is to really kind of pitch the apprenticeship and the associated education to prospective students and say, the beauty of this is connection to jobs and employers from the get-go. And so literally at that college, they would have days where inviting kind of prospective students, prospective employees in to meet the companies, to kind of get excited about the job opportunities, to talk about in that case the different employers would offer different packages, like when you're a diesel mechanic, like the toolkit is $1,500, so the fact that a company would say, we're going to give you a toolkit, we're going to pay for all or half of your tuition, was really huge. So it was both a recruiting strategy, and then obviously it was an opportunity for companies to get eyes on students. And then literally then there was a follow-up interview day where companies would pick the students that they wanted to sponsor for the apprenticeship program. So that's the model I talked to Lynn about. And yeah, workforce can be very helpful in driving prospects to those sessions, if we structure it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be really beneficial to have. I don't know if that would take over too much on your event, Madeline, that you're trying to get people to. But having something where it's sort of like a career fair. And I know that there is an apprenticeship fair coming up at the end of August that they're holding for Denver. But if there's a way for, even just a couple of similar minded apprenticeships to come together for a career fair type thing. It doesn't have to be specifically an apprenticeship fair, but where we could talk about the apprenticeship there, but also, there may be people just interested in the profession and getting that word out to different workforce centers to kind of get a good group of people there, and we can open it up to anyone in our sector partnership to attend as a recruiting event and a apprenticeship information session. I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
There might be some ways to combine it with Madeline, with what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm super open to discussing that possibility.
I know Kelly just also posted, it's probably a little late for our time frame, but the Rocky Mountain ISA meeting, is definitely another opportunity for us to kind of make sure we have a voice there. That's going to be in October. Yeah, just want to throw that in there. Kelly, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to draw attention to, Madeline did post that doodle poll for us to be able to sign up. There's a myriad of times to sign up for, to get as many people there as we can. So.
And Madeline, are you looking for a specific level, or if anyone is interested in sharing their story, are all levels welcome?
I don't think a specific level. I think the main goal was just to like plug the apprenticeship and have kind of people, leaders who have been really involved in that program, to speak to the benefits and how people could get involved and why it's important. And so
not necessarily the apprentices themselves, it's the employers hosting that. Okay.
I guess, yeah, unless, and if apprentices were able to come or wanted to, that would be awesome, but that might be a lot of coordinating. I don't know.
Very cool. Well, we are coming up on 10:30. So I do want to make sure we respect everyone's time. So unless there's anything else, I think we did it. We got everything in. So cool. Very, very much thank you for having me take the reins, Josh. Hopefully you get some sleep after your travels. And we'll plan on seeing everyone next month. And in the meantime, it sounds like we've got a lot of exciting stuff going on. So very cool.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.